Welcome to the brief presentation on questions related to the ROHS Directive. EU directives have restricted their use of certain hazardous substances in electrical and electronic equipment for more than a decade. ROHS Directive 2002/95/EC, issued in 2002, restricted their use of their 6 chemicals: lead, cadmium, mercury, and hexavalent chromium, as well as flame retardants polybrominated biphenyls (PBB) and polybrominated diphthenyl ethers (PBDS). Manufacturers are required to replace these chemicals in their products with less hazardous alternatives. Hereafter, EEE means electrical and electronic equipment. Overview of banned substances. ROHS 2. Lead 0.1%. Mercury 0.1%. Cadmium 0.1%. Hexavalent chromium 0.1%. Polybrominated biphenyls PBB 0.1%. Polybrominated diphthenyl ethers PBDE 0.1%. The ROHS recast was mainly aimed at developing better regulatory conditions. That means a simple, effective and enforceable directive, increasing their level of legal clarity and certainty, including their facilitation of its harmonized enforcement, their adaptation of their directive to the technical and scientific progress concerning their use of hazardous substances in EEE, particularly in medical devices, and monitoring and control instruments, aligning and harmonizing ROHS with other EU legislation, such as their new legislative framework, marketing of products package, REACH, their ROHS Directive, and legislation related to management of waste from EEE, with their objective to reduce administrative burden and to increase cost effectiveness, harmonizing their implementation made in their different member states, and preventing risks to human health and their environment, with a particular focus on workers involved in the management of electronic waste. There are key differences between ROHS 1 and ROHS 2 in their following areas. 1. Scope: a gradual extension of their requirements to all electrical and electronic equipment, EEE, cables and spare parts, with a view to full compliance, except some exclusions for that are explicitly stated in Article 2 by 22nd of July 2019, a clarification of important definitions. Article 3. Provision for a review of their scope no later than July 2014. 2. Restriction of new substances, a methodology for their assessment of new hazardous substances in EEE with a view to restriction mainly based on waste-related criteria, a review of their list of restricted substances carried out by the Commission by July 2014, and periodically thereafter, an opportunity for member states to propose new substance restrictions. 3. Exemptions, clearer and more transparent rules for granting, renewing or deleting exemptions, obligation of manufacturers to apply for exemptions and to carry out their necessary assessment. 4. Coherence with other EU legislation, new legislative framework, marking and declaration of conformity and regulation. No 1907-2006 on their registration, evaluation, authorization and restriction of chemicals, REACH. Number. Recital 14 of ROHS 2 specifically states that ROHS should apply without prejudice to the Batteries Directive. Recital 29 of their Batteries and Accumulators Directive states ROHS does not apply to batteries and accumulators used in electrical and electronic equipment. Categories of EEE covered by this directive. 1. Large household appliances. 2. Small household appliances. 3. IT and telecommunications equipment. 4. Consumer equipment. 5. Lighting equipment. 6. Electrical and electronic tools. 7. Toys, leisure and sports equipment. 8. Medical devices. 9. Monitoring and control instruments including industrial monitoring and control instruments. 10. Automatic dispensers. 11. Other EEE not covered by any of their categories above. Equipment utilizing or detecting ionizing radiation. 1. Lead, cadmium and mercury in detectors for ionizing radiation. 2. Lead bearings in X-ray tubes. 3. Lead in electromagnetic radiation amplification devices, microchannel plate and capillary plate. 4. Lead in glass frit of X-ray tubes and image intensifiers and lead in glass frit binder for assembly of gas lasers and 4. Vacuum tubes that convert electromagnetic radiation into electrons. 5. Lead in shielding for ionizing radiation. 6. Lead in X-ray test objects. 7. Lead stir at X-ray diffraction crystals. 8. Radioactive cadmium isotope source for portable X-ray fluorescence spectrometers, sensors, detectors and electrodes. 1A. Lead and cadmium in ion selective electrodes including glass of pH electrodes. 1B. Lead anodes in electrochemical oxygen sensors. 1C. Lead, cadmium and mercury in infrared light detectors. 1D. Mercury in reference electrodes, low chloride mercury chloride, mercury sulfate and mercury oxide. Others. 9. Cadmium in helium cadmium lasers. 10. Lead and cadmium in atomic absorption spectroscopy lamps. 11. Lead in alloys as a superconductor and thermal conductor in MRI. 12. Lead and cadmium in metallic bonds to superconducting materials in MRI and squid detectors. 13. Lead in counterweights. 14. Lead in single crystal piezoelectric materials for ultrasonic transducers. 15. Lead in solders for responding to ultrasonic transducers. 16. Mercury in very high accuracy capacitance and loss measurement bridges and in high frequency RF switches and relays in monitoring and control instruments not exceeding 20 mg of mercury per switch or relay. 17. Lead-in solders in portable emergency defibrillators. 18. Lead-in solders of high-performance infrared imaging modules to detect in their range 8 to 14 meters. 19. Lead-in liquid crystal on silicon LCOS displays. 20. Cadmium in X-ray measurement filters. The EN 50581 standard technical documentation for their assessment of electrical and electronic products with respect to the restriction of hazardous substances considers supplier declarations and suppliers' declarations of conformity as a valid tool. Documents to prepare the technical documentation for products falling under ROHS. In case of any query, please contact us at this email address. We will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much for your time.